Hey there, fellow narrow gaugers. So I want to apologize for not putting a video up here for a while, but things have been rather hectic around here, and hectic in a good way. We just yesterday ran the 58 for the last time of the season, and brought her in after we were done for the day, and let the steam pressure drop off, and then open up the blow down and blew all the water out. And then with the boiler still warm, everything that was inside evaporated out. And then we got busy starting on the winterizing, taking apart of valves and taking piping apart and breaking unions, and making sure that we get all the water out of the locomotive, because it won't be very long. We'll be going into the deep freeze, and the last thing we want is anything to freeze and break. So you can see we've got the plugs out. Took the injectors off, and taking the valves apart and all that. And next step is going to be taking the dome lid off. Probably gonna do that this weekend, and get in where the auxiliary dry pipe is and suck the water out of it. Then also take the spool off of the throttle valve, make sure there's no water down in there. And then we're either going to put a desiccant in the boiler or a vapor corrosion inhibitor, one of the two, depending on what we get, and then seal the boiler back up, put all the plugs back in, and put all the plumbing back together once it's all dry, and that should keep the boiler in good shape until next spring. So we won't have to worry about any corrosion, any problems going on the inside of the boiler once we do that. And then we're going to focus our efforts on some upgrades to 58, which is going to happen over the winter. One of which, the most important, is so this is here's the engineer's view. You can't see the sight glass from where I'm at, and there's not a lot of room in there to turn it so you can see it. And if you turn it this way, then the fireman isn't going to be able to see it. So that's been a problem. So I bought another one, and we're going to put another sight glass right here. And so when you're sitting here in the engineer's seat looking ahead, you're going to see that sight glass dead ahead. So there'll be no ambiguity about what we have in the boiler. And of course, you see I already took the pressure gauge off, because that's got to go inside to keep from freezing. But there will be another pressure gauge that's going to go up right here in the middle on top of the back head. So the fireman will have a pressure gauge and a water glass all his own, and the engineer will also have the same over here, so that there will be no more questions, well, what's the steam pressure? What's the water level? Blah, blah, blah. Both people on the locomotive will be able to see it at a glance. So that's a big improvement. Of course, that means drilling a couple holes into the boiler shell and tapping it for the piping, but that's not going to be a big deal. So as you can see here, we have all the, or at least some of the washout plugs out already. Some of the valves taken apart. So this is how we basically do it: is disconnect the unions, take the piping apart. If you got a valve that is going to stay in the locomotive, we just take the bonnet off, and then we can get in here with a rag, and then sop whatever water maybe laying in here and get that out of here. But of course, over a period of time, as this is exposed to the atmosphere, and we have a nice warm day, most of this will just evaporate out. But there's a lot of places that water can lay in here. One of which is, you see this pipe here, this kind of angles downward to this point. So I'm going to break this, and then basically wick whatever water's in here out, so we don't break this pipe over the winter. So one of the other things we're going to work on over the winter is the valve timing, so that by spring we should have that valve timing figured out. and be ready to run and have a little bit more power, and the engine will sound a little bit better. There's a follower block in here, and these are curved, and then when you're in forward, this is up in the air, and then when you're in reverse, it's opposite, or the other way around, whichever. But there's a little bit of slop in there because that block is worn. So we're going to do a little machine work over the winter to tighten all this stuff up and check out a few areas that might need new pins and bushing. So just a general maintenance work that we do over the winter that we're going to get done on it. So another thing that we're thinking of doing with the locomotive for next year is let me get this off, and we'll open up the door here and explain exactly what I've got in mind. But we're going to do additional steam locomotive experiences, and in the process of doing those, I kind of had this idea, like, well, why don't we try to use the steam locomotive for making food instead of going out for lunch or something? Why don't we try to cook on the locomotive? And there's a lot of different things you can make with a steam locomotive. It's basically a giant kitchen. And the one thing we're thinking of doing is getting up here in the smoke box and putting a shelf up in here and having a big steel box. And basically using this as an oven. Now, having that box up there isn't going to interfere at all with the operation of the locomotive, but the smoke box stays 200-300 degrees in here. So, hey, let's say doing baked potatoes in a smoke box is a classic one. I've heard of people baking bread on a locomotive before, but the key is that you have to have an environment that is free from all the cinders and the smoke. So if we have a steel box here that's going to be basically sealed from the environment in the smoke box, of course wrap everything up in tinfoil as well, then we can do some cooking here. And I'm thinking that we do the experience. Hey, you come here, we meet somewhere for breakfast in the morning, come over here, fire up the locomotive, go out there, run her back and forth a bunch of times. Meanwhile, put something up in here, and it's cooking the whole time. And then by the time we're done running the train for the day, come down here, stop, open up the door, pull it out, go into Caboose, and have some lunch. So we're going to give this a try. I hope this works out. So we're going to be doing some experimenting with cooking with the locomotive. Of course, you also have the traditional doing bacon on the scoop, and of course you can set something up on top of the back head. The problem with putting something on the back head is that you're going to smell it and you're going to want to eat it, and up here in the smoke box you're not really going to smell it all that much, and it won't distract you too much. So one of the other things we did yesterday is I got the steam one off the auxiliary steam tap on the locomotive here, and we got in here with the wand and basically blew a lot of the soot off of some of these surfaces. Of course, there's some of it still here. It gets caked on here, so we'll also get in here with a wire brush and kind of brush this all down as well. But taking the steam wand, just blew most of the loose stuff off, and we also blew down into each tube. And then I'm going to make up a specific piece that will fit, a nozzle that'll fit in the tube, and then you could just take it with the steam on and then just shove it right down each tube, and then basically steam clean the inside of each tube, and that helps get all that soot out of there. That in addition to brushing, and we ought to be able to keep this a little bit cleaner. We're also looking at doing something with the petticoat here, making it a little bit easier to take out. Those bolts that hold the petticoat in place are just a pain in the rear to try to get out, put back in, hold this in place. So I think what we're going to do is take those brackets and turn them 90 degrees and have a couple studs sticking out. And so you can just take the petticoat and kind of put it in place and then put the two bolts on there. And that makes it a lot easier to take this out to get to the tubes behind it, because with a with a flexible brush tube or tube brush or the steam wand, we can get to all of the tubes, assuming we get this out of the way. So that'll help keep the locomotive clean. And also getting in here and cleaning this out with the steam, I mean, there was no moisture. It all evaporated right off, so this stayed dry, which is kind of important. We keep the smoke box dry. Well, let's see what else we have going on here today. Just continuing to do the work on the caboose here. We moved all the solar panels that were in the back up on the top. So originally we had 5, so now there's 6, and there's going to be 4 more here. There's going to be 2 facing to the right or to the east and 2 facing to the west, because when the sun comes up on a sunny day, the sun comes up right over those trees, and then when it goes down over those trees. And so with 2 panels facing to the east, we're getting that early sunlight, and then with 2 panels facing to the west, we're getting that late afternoon sunlight. And these panels are mainly good for like 11 a.m. to 1 or 2 o'clock, you know, when the sun is beating down directly at them. So by adding the additional panels and also run off of a separate charge controller, we can get maximum amount of power with this setup. So coming into the caboose, started to paint the floor. I've got my desk set up now. I've got a table in here. It's looking pretty junky because we're still in the process of setting things up. But here's the solar installation. Those of you that remember looking up into Locomotive, this is the same inverter that was in the Locomotive. Installed that. Got the 3 Battle-Born batteries. That's 150 amp hours right there. I have the Victron 150/35 charge controller working off of the solar panels. This was the old disconnect. This is the old wiring from the caboose, so that's disconnected. It's not being used for anything. And I have a breaker box that I installed, and as you can tell, we still got a few things that we're finishing up on getting the installation finished. But so far so good. It's doing wonderful. There's room for additional batteries down here. And now the power comes out of the caboose and then feeds the main building and feeds the rest of the site. So we're still completely off grid here when it comes to electricity, and we plan to stay that way as long as it's feasible. I'd rather just continue adding panels and batteries than having to pay $50 to $100 a month electric bill. It's bad enough we have to pay $115 a month for the porta-john over there. But you know, if we were to build an actual bathroom, well, beyond the cost of that and putting indoor plumbing, the city of Youngstown is going to charge me $120 to $150 a month just for water and sewer. Their rates are outrageous here, so it's actually cheaper for us just to have that porta-john here for 6-8 months out of the year. It really is a bad deal for people in the city that they have to pay so much for basic water and sewer. But I digress. So over here we have our components for 2 more 85-pound switches. That's going to go up in the engine facility. We have the switch machine that is going to go up there at Bance on the west end of the number 2 track. And let's see what else. A little bit of rust on the rails. Even though we were running yesterday, we had rain last night, so now the rails are rusty again. Well, we moved the tank car off the neighbor's property and over on our side. So it's going to sit there temporarily until we get its final location ready, but I wanted to get everything back on our side here. Then these just came in recently. They were apparently from the Westinghouse air brake Wilmerding plant, and they were used as traffic signals or warning lights. But it's basically just a USNS base and a mast, and the brackets that they would use for the grade crossing lights that normally would say like no left turn, no right turn. Those are the brackets that would hold those single light heads. So 2 of these I'm going to refurbish and turn into a set of flashing lights for the little private crossing going up the hill, mainly as a photo op. And then we'll have the others as spare components for whatever we need it for. So I still have forms here ready to go for the new steam up area. Haven't gotten the door put on yet. I think I'm going to wait till I get the concrete done. Then I can set the forklift here on the concrete and reach up in there and take that end wall out and put the roll-up door in. Whether or not I get this poured before winter, I don't know. We'll see how my schedule goes and how the weather goes, and if we can, that'd be great. And get this done, and then over the winter I can start working on putting the rails in and all that for the new steam up area, and then next spring continue working on the track over here, 2 switches to come in here for the engine facility. Another recent acquisition here is this Erie Railroad 3-light searchlight, or 3-head searchlight signal. I believe it came out of around the Lima, Ohio area. Those of you who know me know that I love signals, and I love the Erie Railroad, so getting this was great. So this will be at the east or the west end of Bance on number 2 track. So if you're coming off a new number 2 track back onto the main, you'll get a medium approach medium if that switch is lined, and also the one down here at Laughlin Junction is lined. You'll come out medium approach medium, or if the switch at Laughlin Junction is against you, you'll get a medium approach. I guess our neighbors are trying to blow an engine up. And the double base, if you notice, it's a TUSNS company. So that was an earlier one. They later dropped the T off of the castings. So that'll go into use here as we continue building out our signal installation. So that's about all I have to report for today. We're just going to keep working on things here and get the locomotive finished, get the weatherizing done on it, do some of that plumbing work, and I'm going to spend some time over the winter doing some paid work for other entities so we can make a little extra money to get us started in the next year. And then, of course, it'll be nice to get out of here for a little bit. Spend every day here basically, and you need to take a break and do stuff elsewhere. So I'll spend a little bit of time doing that, and then also continue spending time here getting the stuff ready to go for next year. So all right, fellow narrow gaugers, I'll talk with you later on, and thanks everyone for your support of this project and this railroad up to this point. And I hope you could sincerely hope you can come out here to Youngstown and take part in one of the steam locomotive experiences, ride the train, and come out here and do it in real life instead of just watching it on YouTube. I know some of you from the other side of the world, but I can always hope that someday I'll be able to shake your hand. So take care, everyone.